Hi everyone, good to be with you again. We're now on to breaking news number 4. Headline this week is Miracle in Cana. Man turns water into wine. It's me again, just in case you haven't been tuning in. It's totally skeptical reporting from the unfolding story in the life of Mary, the Virgin Mom, and Jesus, her son, our miracle son. Now, in my last report, I told you that I had not had any contact with Mary for approximately 12 years. But when she finally did contact me, it was an update. This was last week's news on an incident in the life of Jesus when he was 12 years old. They were travelling back from Jerusalem. If you saw the report last week, just a wee recap, and he went missing. They had travelled a day's journey from Jerusalem before they found out. They thought Jesus was probably playing with the other kids. Why not? On the journey back. But when they tried to find him, he wasn't there. So they had to travel a day's journey back to Jerusalem. And then, as we said last week, what a daunting task to search Jerusalem, that vast city, and it was hustling and bustling with other people at that time of the year as well, who had journeyed there. But it took 3 days and they found him in the temple. And really that was the last report that I had from Mary concerning Jesus. Now, I had not heard anything more, again, from the miracle duo until late last night, just as soon as late last night, when a colleague working in Cana in Galilee sent me this email with the headline that I just read out to you. Miracle in Cana. Man turns water into wine. And again, I just thought about it and I went, how long is it since Mary last spoke to me? And I worked it out. It has been around 18 years. 12 years the last time, 18 years the second time around. Now, my colleague's email, it started out like this. I'm just going to read it to you. His email reads, "Hi, Skeptical. A man who was serving at a wedding came to me with this far-fetched story about a miracle he had apparently witnessed in Cana at a wedding. And this is his account. He said there was a wedding in the town of Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mother Mary was there. Jesus and his followers were also invited. At the wedding there was not enough wine, so Jesus' mother said to him, 'They have no more wine.' Jesus answered, 'Dear woman, why are you telling me this? It is not yet my time to begin my work.' His mother said to me and the other servants, 'Do what he tells you.' There were 6 large stone water pots there that were used by the Jews in their washing ceremonies. Each one held about 20 to 30 gallons of water. Jesus then told us to fill each one. Fill the water pots, he said, with water. So we filled them to the top. Then Jesus said to me, 'Now dip out some water and take it to the man in charge of the feast.' So I did what he said. The man in charge of the feast, he tasted it, but the water had become wine. He did not know where the wine had come from, but myself and the other servants who brought the water, we knew where it came from. The man then called the bridegroom and said to him, 'People always serve the best wine first. Later, when the guests are drunk, they serve the cheaper wine. But you have saved the best wine until now.' My reporter colleague, he was intrigued by this. Now, I have to say, he's not maybe as sceptical as what I am. And believe it or not, his name actually reflects that. His name is open-minded. But my colleague, he interviewed the servant who had told him this story. Because if it was true, then it would be another possible miracle in the unfolding story in the lives of Mary and Jesus. The servant told my colleague that those at the wedding feast on that day, maybe it was warmer than usual, I don't know, but they seemed to be drinking more than usual. And it really did look likely that they were going to run out of wine way before the celebrations were complete. Now, when the bridal party, according to the servant, were made aware of this, there was a great panic amongst them, and you can identify with that, of course. Could you imagine if it was your wedding or my wedding, and someone came and tapped you on the shoulder and said, you know what, within the next few minutes or whatever, there's going to be no more drink for anyone at this party. So you can imagine the panic, the embarrassment, the shame that their families would have been under. It would have been a total embarrassment, a total disaster. It would be your worst nightmare. You'd be shamed to the core. You'd probably be looking for a hole to open up in the ground so you could crawl into. You can imagine if this had got out into the public arena, onto Facebook, onto social media, and your name was all over it. Big wedding. You can just see the headlines, can't you? Big wedding runs out of drink halfway through. Especially in such a sacred time in the lives of this couple. And I mean, hopefully it would be their wedding for life. And yet, what would they remember on their wedding day? We ran out of wine. Now, at this point, it appears, and we don't know how or who told Mary about it, but she became aware that there was a problem. There was a dilemma. Now, perhaps, and we don't know, perhaps Mary was related to someone in the wedding party, because we know that she was invited, we know that Jesus was invited, and we also know that Jesus' followers were invited, so it is possible that there was a family connection to Mary. But when she found out, someone in the bridal party had obviously told her what the problem was, she wanted to do something about it. As I say, we don't know how she found out, but what we do know, according to the servant at the wedding, is that when Mary informed her son Jesus of the dire and potentially embarrassing situation, it appears that Jesus didn't really want to know. The servant claimed that Jesus said to his mother, "Dear woman," and he's quoting, "Dear woman, why are you telling me this? It is not yet time for me to begin my work." And then his mother Mary said to us, myself and the other servants, "Do what he tells you." Now here's an interesting thing. We don't really know, we weren't really sure what Jesus was referring to when he said that the work that he was sent to do, it wasn't his time to do that. But Jesus' mum was very adamant that he do something now because time was running out with the wine situation. The servants, we recall Mary saying to myself and the other servants, "Just do whatever he tells you." Now, folks, we'd never met Jesus before. And here it is, this man, a stranger, and we're told to do whatever he tells you. In the interview, the servant went into great detail about what happened next. You can imagine the scene. Only the wedding party, the bridal party, Mary, the servants, and Jesus, maybe Jesus' followers, we don't know. But only they really knew the situation. And myself and the other servants, we were staring at this man, this stranger. Didn't know who he was. Just knew he was called Jesus, that Mary was his mum. And we're staring at him going, what's he going to do? And what's he going to tell us to do that's going to make a difference at this wedding feast? That's going to change it, to avert this disaster? Because that's what it would have been, a total disaster. So to be honest, we were all feeling a bit tense at what was going to happen next. He couldn't figure out, what's he going to do? What can he do? He can't lift the phone and call some brewery and say, hold on guys, we're running out of wine, get round here quick. So we sort of came to the conclusion that this is going to be, if he can do anything here now, it's going to be a miracle. It has to be a miracle if he can do anything. And the thing was, none of us had ever witnessed a miracle before, so we were not confident that something good was going to happen in this. But Jesus told myself and my other colleagues to take 6 large stone water pots that were just sitting over in the corner. And he said, go and get them and fill them to the brim with water. Now these water pots were usually used by the Jews for cleansing in their ceremonial washings. Now folks, these weren't small pots. Each pot held between 20 and 30 gallons. Now that's a lot of water. That's somewhere between 120 and 180 gallons of water. So we did what Mary said. We did what her son Jesus told us to do. We took the water pots and we filled them to the brim with water. We did what we were told. Even though, to be honest with you, we thought this is a total waste of time and energy. Not only that, we're going to get into serious trouble here somewhere. We all felt that. Nothing good is going to happen here. We thought we were going to lose our jobs. I mean, it would have been embarrassing enough just to run out of wine. But to fill these water pots with water and then start serving it out to the guests and the master of ceremonies. But we did it. We did what Mary said. We did what Jesus told us to do. Jesus told us to take some water, bring it to the master of ceremonies, which we did. And we were just waiting for him to explode with anger. We were waiting for a mouthful of water to be spewed out all over the wedding ceremony. But he didn't. He didn't explode with anger. In fact, he took a sip, took another sip, and then downed the whole glass. And we were all standing there looking at one another going, what's going on here? This is what happened next. The master of ceremonies, he called the bridegroom and said to him, people always serve the best wine first. Later, when the guests are drunk, they bring out the cheap wine and they serve that. But you have never experienced this before. You've kept the best wine, and it is good wine, to the very end. Never experienced that before. Now, out of curiosity, the The servants, we got together and we said, hey, how much wine is that? And we worked it out, 20 to 30 gallons. That would fill between 120, that would be about 120, 180 gallons of that amount of wine. 120 to 180 gallons. How many bottles would that fill? Between 120, 180 gallons of wine. How many bottles would that fill? So none of us were really mathematicians. So we calculated it. 5 bottles per gallon. We worked it out. 5 bottles of wine per gallon. That equates to between 600 and 900 bottles of wine. Now, that took a bit of time for us to get our heads around it. Between 600 and 900 bottles of wine. Now, folks, that's a lot of wine for anybody. But for guests that are already not drunk but getting there, that's a lot more to be given them. The servants and myself, we'd never seen anything like this. No guest, no one, not even the bridal party, had really understood what had happened here. Well, it was as simple as this, folks. We had said that the only way out of this is a miracle. That's exactly what happened. Jesus said his work hadn't yet begun and he didn't really want to get involved, but he really did perform a miracle at that wedding. I thank the servant for his account of his first-hand account, a witness of this miracle, and letting me be part of what unfolded that day in Cana in Galilee. I had never heard of a miracle before, I'd never witnessed one before. Not sure if I even believed that miracles could happen. But this man was so believable. The account that he gave, he was very credible. Now, I have to be honest here, my colleague from the Jerusalem Post, he had told me part of this story about the virgin birth, how it had taken place, about the angels, and about that horrific instant when King Herod had all the children 2-year-old and under killed, hoping that one of them would be baby Jesus. He told me that in all his years of reporting, that there was something about this story that he just felt was so unusual, and it was something worth following, that he himself personally, he was struggling to figure it out and work it out and come to terms with it. But what he did was this: he encouraged me, far younger reporter, not as long in the tooth, if you like to put it that way. I haven't got the same experience, but he encouraged me. He says, you know what, open-minded, you keep an eye on this man called Jesus, because I'm telling you, there's just something about him. I can't figure it out. I don't know where his story's going, but I do believe there's a story there. And he said, I'm going to encourage you to follow it. Keep a close eye. Listen for the reports. And take note of what's happening in the life of Mary and Jesus. And then, totally sceptical, he sprang this one on me. He said, you know what, open-minded? He says, I haven't told a lot of people this, but I'm not too well at the minute, and I'm coming up to retirement anyway, so I'm going to take early retirement. So really the ball's now in your court. I'm not going to be able to follow this anymore, but please, I ask you to follow it. And I promised him, I said, you know what, Skeptical, I'll do my best to keep an eye on it, and from time to time maybe just drop you an email and keep you informed of what's going on in the life of Mary and Jesus. I hope there are more opportunities to report on this, and I will do my very, very best to bring you breaking news, to bring you the headlines of what's taking place in the lives of these two people. But for now, folks, I'm off on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm not going very far. So that's all my reporting for now. But do keep tuned in from, hopefully, up and coming journalist of the year, your friendly reporter, open-minded. Take care. Peace and blessings. Bye.